Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Health Code. Well, we're going to do something a little bit different today. We're not going to have a guest. We're going to talk about a specific subject related to health. I'm going to do this every now and again because we cover a lot of different things with guests. We cover diet, we cover nutrition, we cover things like herbs, as we did with Andrea Beeman. We cover exercise. We cover so many different things, all of which contribute to health, whether that's health in a positive way or health in a negative way. But tonight we're going to discuss psychology. We're going to discuss mental health. We're going to discuss psychological well-being, because this is something that for probably the last 5 or 6 years has become a real buzzword. It's something that's become a bit of an interesting area to discuss for a number of reasons. Now, mental health or mental well-being is, of course, as real as anything. Of course it is. You can be physically in great shape, but if you're spiritually or mentally weak, beaten down, unhappy, unfulfilled, you're not going to be a healthy person, of course. Our thoughts create emotions, create endorphins, which obviously creates certain outcomes within the body. Hence why a lot of doctors, most doctors worth their salt, would agree that stress is one of the biggest factors in detrimental health. And stress is obviously psychological. And it then, becomes a problem, and it manifests itself in the body in the form of physical illness. So stress, depression, anxiety, all these things are becoming more commonly discussed. However, as always, there's probably been a bit of an overcorrection where mental health, anxiety, things like that, depression, have been overprescribed. They've been overused as an excuse and a justification for certain types of behavior, certain types of attitudes. And as I said at the top there, the overprescription of it then leads to the overprescription of the drugs that the pharmaceutical companies are offering as a solution to those things. So tonight, what I want to talk about is, well, really to unpick anxiety, to unpick depression, to unpick mental health issues, you've got to probably look at what happiness and fulfillment actually is. Because if you're feeling those emotions, you've got to assume that you don't feel any of those things. So, as my dad has always spoken about, rather than trying to find a solution to the problem by looking at the problem and trying to circumvent that problem, is just remove the cause of it. And if people are feeling miserable and unfulfilled, without purpose in their lives, then how can we change that? By going back to the start. And for those of you with a conspiratorial mind like myself, you'll know that the system has not been built like this by accident. It's been built like this by design, to make you feel small, to make you feel weak, and to challenge you psychologically. I mean, to be honest, and a lot of people probably need to hear this, if you look at the world around you, I'd be more concerned for your mental health if you found it normal. You've got a world where a few people control it. You've got a food supply that the vast majority of which is designed to cause ill health. You've got a medical system designed to profit off that ill health. You've got governments running around doing everything they can except help the people. You've got militaries dropping bombs on civilians in multiple countries across the planet at any given stage. You're being told there's a massive international problem where the planet's going to warm up and we're all going to die. No wonder you feel on edge. If you had all that to be hit with and to sit and observe, and you thought, yeah, it's all right, isn't it? I feel great. Then I'd be more worried for you, I have to say. It's not unnormal to feel uneasy in the world that we live in. But then comes the next point, which is, regardless of all those things I've just mentioned, we all live in this world. We've got to survive it. And not only that, we've got to thrive in it. And we've got to try, in my opinion, I'll get accused of preaching again, to do our little bit to make it a better place than it was the day that we got here, to leave it in a slightly better state than we found it for our children and grandchildren and future generations, which, geez, for our generation these days, we've got a lot of work to do, haven't we, to leave it in a better state than we found it, because it only seems to be going in one direction, which again ties in to why so many people psychologically feel like they're struggling. So to go into a few statistics just before we dive into some individual parts of it, because I think they are important to understand just how important and pressing this issue is, which is why I've decided to do this episode on it. So far, over 1 billion people globally are suffering with some form of mental disorder, whether that be anxiety, whether that be depression, eating conditions, and so on. That's about 1 in 8 people. In the UK, 1 in 5 adults regularly report mental health issues. 20% of children aged between 8 and 16, just that's 1/5 of children say they suffer with depression. How can an 8-year-old suffer with depression? What's an 8-year-old got to, what should an 8-year-old have to worry about? They should be young, free, carefree, enjoying their lives. It's so sad to read statistics like that, to think that kids that young, just a couple of years older than my own, are suffering to the point that they would say they have mental health issues. Nearly 12% of adults report severe mental health symptoms. That's up 7% from the 90s. So more than half up. 25% of women compared to 15% of men, as I said. Suicide rates in the UK are the highest, and the highest risk categories: people aged 50 to 54, people put in deprived areas, obviously are likely to face more mental health issues, which is understandable. 1 in 6 workers in the UK experience mental health issues at any given time in the workplace. There's so many things that we can go into here. So we're going to talk about some of the contributing factors according to these studies at the moment. Economic strain. Now that's a massive one. Every single day you go onto the mainstream media, you will see stories about this price going up, scarcity here, fuel costs, taxes, the cost of living, cost of rent, energy bills, whatever it is. I can't remember the last time you went on and you saw something about prices coming down, about rents going down, about taxes going down, about income going up. Those things just don't happen. So as a result, economic strain is, I would suggest, probably the biggest cause of anxiety and stress in most people, probably across the world, on any given day at any given time. It puts enormous pressure on individuals. It puts enormous pressure on relationships. It puts enormous pressure on small businesses and employers. And it puts enormous pressure, secondary, on children, of course. Now, parents will probably shield the burden from their children in terms of passing that on, the concerns they have, but kids aren't stupid. If there's issues paying for things, kids are going to know, even if it materializes in that, oh, well, the next door neighbor's kid's got a new bike, why can't I have one? If it materializes in those sort of situations, kids understand those things. And then you've got that guilt as a parent for why your kid you can't give your kid what you want to be able to give them. It's an absolute shit show, really. And again, to come back to the conspiracy side, it's been designed that way. If you manage to break through the glass ceiling that's becoming very concrete, it feels like, and pull yourself out of some kind of poverty and give yourself some financial independence and freedom, you're the minority. Most people aren't going to do that. Most people are going to live paycheck to paycheck for the rest of their lives. And if they manage to scrabble around enough to save for retirement, they're then going to have the best years of their life working on behalf of somebody else, for somebody else, for not a lot, to enjoy a few years at the end when you're too old to really enjoy it. It's such a sad, sad cycle. And just saying that out loud, you can understand why so many people feel disengaged. They feel anxious. They feel scared about the future. And they feel restless and they feel hopeless about the future. Like, what's the point? No matter how hard I try, I'm never going to get ahead. No matter how much work I put in, no matter how good I am, I do all the right things. I do all the things I'm told will get me success. But it doesn't. You can see why people feel so disengaged. You really can. But the system is rigged. It's like playing a fruit machine. You know it's rigged against you. You know it's designed for the house to always win, because if the house didn't always win, or win at least the majority of the time, there'd be no house. You have a system that's built that way. It's not built for the individuals that live within it to thrive. So with that in mind, I see absolutely no shock as to why economic strain and cost of living are at the highest when it comes to this issue. And the third, which I find very interesting, is increased isolation. Now, it puts this down largely to the pandemic or plandemic, which has shown a 60% increase since in people reporting this particular contributing factor for their mental health. But it's not just that. Social media, the online life, the fact that the social dynamic has changed massively, where people aren't as sociable, they don't go out as much, they don't see friends as much. Everything has been forced online. People are spending their time death scrolling on social media rather than going out and interacting with actual people. Local communities, whether it be in towns and villages and inner cities, have been torn apart by a number of different factors: economic factors, immigration factors, technological factors that have pulled those communities apart. Where there was once harmony, there was once unity, there was, love thy neighbor and all of that, and people that used to stand in the street having cups of tea with a neighbor, and you knew everybody's name that you lived close to, and there was that feeling of family, that feeling of unity. So even if you were on your own, or you're a single person, or you weren't with anyone, then you didn't feel alone. Again, that's changed. That's changed massively, where people just don't know their neighbors anymore. And that's a community thing. It's a mindset thing. I've lived where I live now in this particular house for coming on 9 years now. And we've had a bunch of different neighbors that have moved, because 9 years, to be fair, is quite a long time to live somewhere these days. And I don't know, I know 2 or 3 of them, because people just keep themselves to themselves, which I have no issue with. But I do understand that social dynamic has changed, which has led to people feeling more isolated. The other thing as well, to go back to the online perspective on it, particularly in the young, is the online world is not real, but people think it is. The aggression and the vitriol that people get spoken to online, the way people speak online, I should say, the things they say to other people, you would never say that to somebody's face. No one's going to walk past a 15-year-old girl in the street and tell her she's fat and ugly, or that she should just go off and die, or something extreme like that. Only a psychopath would say something like that. But on social media, those sorts of things are common. They're so common that I could find an example within seconds, I'd have thought. I've seen things that have been said to me, and I've got a thick enough skin that I can deal with it. Someone told me on social media a few weeks ago, the world will be better when you're not in it. And I looked at it and I laughed and said, thank you very much. What about the people that don't do that? What about the people that think that's real, that think that's reality, and take that home with them and go and do something silly because they think the world is against them, when it's not? It's some psychopath online. All of those things have contributed to that feeling of isolation. And also, the final point online is that everybody lives their best life online, but it's not real. So you can look at people and think, oh, someone's got more money than me, they look happier than me, they've got a nicer car than me, their wife's hotter than mine. None of it's real. It's not real. It's very easy to post something now and make it look like I have the best possible life. What they're not going to see is the 10 minutes before I started this video that I've been arguing with my youngest son, trying to get him to go to bed. It's not real. Whether you live on Instagram or whether you live in an inner city in a tower block, you have the same issues. You have the same concerns. You have the same fears. One's just masking it. I would say the vast majority of humanity have the same concerns, the same things that keep us up at night. Wanting to be a good person, wanting to take care of the people you love, and wanting to survive, really. If you strip it back to those simple things, survival. And we live in a world that makes that very difficult. So it's very understandable why people have issues with those. But let's unpack this for a second. So we're told, essentially, we are sold our dreams, aren't we? We're sold our dreams by the education system to start with, who was selling dreams to our parents as well, who invariably then sell their dreams to us, and it's a cycle. And we're told what success looks like. We're told what a happy, successful, fulfilled life looks like. And I can tell you, the older I've got, the more you realize pretty much all of that is complete bollocks. Okay. You're told that success comes from power, from influence, from accolades. Does it? For me, success means nothing. None of the measurements of success that you would be given when looking at a mainstream metric mean anything if you're not sharing it with the right people. You can be a multi-billionaire sat with your Aston Martin in your mansion in Dubai on your own and be absolutely miserable. But you can be sat in a tower block in West London, 4 kids in a 2-bedroom flat, no money at all, and the happiest person because you're sharing it with the right people. And you know that real happiness comes from meaning and purpose. And for me, anyway, just my perspective, that is duty to other people. Not to the point that you sacrifice your own life, of course, but for me, what gets me up every morning is the people that I know are expecting me to, the people I know that are counting on me, the people I know that are going to be going, what's going on if you don't turn up? That's what gets me up in the morning. That's what gets me out of bed. I couldn't look my kids in the eye. I couldn't look my wife in the eye. I couldn't look my parents, my friends, if I knew I wasn't trying, if I knew I wasn't doing everything I could to try and make the world a better place for them. Now, I'm not saying everybody has to have something as extreme as that, but we all have somebody and we all have something, even if it's just a duty to ourselves to be the best possible version of ourselves and to chase whatever success means to us. And how many people were ever asked that question when they were having in their formative years through education? What does success mean to you? Not what success based on the metric we're going to give you, which is usually more money, more fame, more accolades, more this, more status, more promotions, more bedrooms in your house. That's the metric the system gives you. But what do you think? What would make you feel happy and fulfilled? And the joke is, at 16 years old, you haven't got a flipping clue what the answer to that question is. You're thinking about how you're going to ask that girl out or where you're going to get alcohol from on Friday night. They're the sort of things you should be thinking about as a kid. You shouldn't be worried about what you're going to do with your life to the point you're having all this pressure put on you at such a young age, when at 16 you're learning, you're finding your place. You don't know anything. You might know a few things, obviously, but you don't know everything. If you ask me what I wanted to do when I was 16, I ain't got a clue. I'm not sure I have a clue now, to be honest, but something that tries to, that pushes you to be better. So let's look at a few alternative measurements of success and see if they actually align a little bit more. A journey, not just a destination. Now that is the one that popped out for me really interesting at the top, which is we're told that life is a series of destinations. The big house, the wife, the car, the promotion, X, Y, and Z. But vast majority of the time, you're on the journey to get to one of those things. Well, if the journey is something you can't stand, firstly, the destination is just a short-lived bit of, well done, cool, right, what's the next one? Very, very few times does the destination actually feel anything other than an anticlimax. Got to try and find something, in my opinion, that the journey is part of the fun. It's the journey. It's the way you get there. The getting there is secondary. The getting there is great, and you all high five and well done, and you go on to the next challenge, whatever that might look like. But the journey is the fun bit. If you can figure that out, that's a massive start, in my opinion. If you can figure that out, that would be huge. And how many times does mainstream education, the mainstream media, talk about the journey? Which, let's just look at the journey for a second. You're not going to get somewhere overnight. Very rarely. It's going to be a series of steps to get there, whatever it is you're trying to achieve. Well, that journey is going to be a lot more fun if you're doing it with somebody or some people you actually want to be around, if you share a common purpose with somebody. It's like a lot of people will go to, obviously, I'm a big fan of training and the gym and stuff like that. And some people can go every single day. I'm one of them. And they train on their own. They prefer that, actually. And they just get on with it. But for most people, especially somebody who is walking in there who's, overweight and wants to make a start, the journey of doing it with somebody would make it a lot more fun, make it a lot more interesting. It would hold them accountable. It would make it feel more achievable because you've got somebody there to support and you've got somebody there to support you. Well, that sounds more fun. Somebody just went, there you go, you've lost all your weight, you're ripped now, go to the beach. Okay, it might sound great, the concept. It might look great in a picture, but you haven't earned that. You have the journey to get there, it was non-existent. You just got the destination. And I could tell you from personal experience, it's nowhere near as fun. Just to stick one final example of that, that I can relate to. When I did my ultra marathon, when I got towards the end of it, I was thinking about all the days I spent training, all the runs that I did, all the times that I went out when it was freezing cold at 5 a.m. And it was worth it. And I felt that fulfillment. I felt that achievement because I knew I'd worked flipping hard to get there. And it's like when we release a documentary on the channel, that hours and hours and hours of time and energy have gone into producing that. So therefore you feel that sense of satisfaction. Someone just went, there you go, there's a new film, go on, put it out. You're not going to get that. So this idea that the destination is the aspiration, for me, that's something we've been sold. I think we need to make the journey something that we enjoy. And there's going to be challenges in the journey. Of course there is. I'm not saying there's not. Almost every film we make, somebody will fall out with somebody at some point. Every time you train for something, you're going to get injured at some point and you're going to have to deal with it. You're going to fall out with your partner. That's going to happen. But ultimately, the journey for me is something that we need to make enjoyable. Continuous evolution, which is an interesting one, which is we have this concept that you achieve and that's it. But maybe you achieve something and then actually that worked for you for a bit. And then maybe you need to go and do something else. And maybe the person you were today is who you need to be today. But tomorrow you might need to be somebody slightly different. The older people watching will understand that more, that as you go through your life, you have to evolve. I'm not the same person I was when I was 18. I'm not the same person I was when I was 25, because when I was 25, I didn't have a family. I didn't have kids to be responsible for. You could be a bit more carefree. You could be a bit more loose with yourself in whatever context you want to apply that. But as you get more responsibility, whether that be a business, whether that be a house, whether that be a partner, whether that be a family, you evolve. You have more challenges. As you get older, you have more physical challenges. You have to evolve over time. Of course you do. And I think sometimes when people don't do that, they leave the education system, and because it's so broken, people leave going, thank God that's over, and have a really bad association with learning because the education system's turned them against it, essentially, because it's made them think learning needs to be dull, mundane, and they're not learning anything that's of interest to them or actually useful to them. I mean, who's ever used algebra in their adult life? And actually, I loved maths, so that's a bad example for me, but I've still never used it, and I run a business. You think maths would be quite an important skill, and it is. That's why I did economics at university, but I've never used algebra. Running Iconic, I could tell you that. Maybe if I did, we'd be 3 times the size. Who knows? I'll try that tomorrow. But people leave with that negative association with education, so they become stagnant because they just, go off into the world, and that's that. I think that's part of the reason that we have we have issues, because if you're the same person at 50 you were at 20, firstly, life's pretty boring. And I can understand why people feel quite disengaged. And the final one, which really stuck out, is the power of purpose. True success brings a sense of inner satisfaction, peace, rather than external validation and superficial gains. Now, I've just summed up social media: superficial gains and external validation. People that look and judge their success on how many likes or clicks or followers they have, for me, that's not true fulfillment. That's not true happiness. You're looking outside. You've got to look in the mirror and be happy with what looks back at you. And the only person that can satisfy that person in the mirror is you. Hence why, as I said earlier, you could be the billionaire in Dubai with the model girlfriend and be miserable because you're not doing something, or you don't feel that sense of purpose and satisfaction coming back from yourself. Yet on the surface, that person's got everything you need to be successful by the mainstream metrics, but they're miserable. Why? Because these mainstream metrics are, in my opinion, complete bollocks. The only one that's on the mainstream metric that I would say is important is financial freedom. Because as we looked at when we were looking at statistics for why people suffer with mental health issues, financial dependency and survival is contributing to about 90% of these mental health concerns. And I understand why. We live in a world that is rigged against you. You've got to be very, 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 very fortunate, have some luck along the way, and work your arse off to get out of it. No doubt about it. But imagine the satisfaction of winning a rigged game when it's not rigged for you, it's rigged against you. Imagine the sense of purpose of doing that, especially if you do that with integrity. You do that doing something that you find you give value to, and you find a purpose within it and a meaning within it. You know, that Manosphere documentary showed that if you want to be wealthy, it's not hard. If you've got no morals and no scruples and you just want money in the bank, it's not difficult, really. But people's moral compass, I think, is fortunately a lot better than those guys, and that's why they don't do things like that, and they don't run around being happy, exploiting people for their own financial gain. But essentially, I think we've forgotten what makes us happy, because did anybody ever ask what that was? I remember a poignant point somebody said to me a few years ago. Actually, we were filming out in a place up in North Derbyshire. I can't remember what it's called. It's like a famous peak. And we were filming an episode of a show Gareth was doing with a guy called Tim Sheaf, who's what they call a free runner. So essentially he does competitions where you have to get from one side of the city to the other, and you do what you want. You run whichever direction you want. You're jumping off of buildings. It's fascinating. And he was a world champion at one point, actually. And Tim talked about something called playtime, right? And he said, as a kid, you have time allocated to play. The vast majority of your time as a child is playing, especially if you're in full-time education, 9 to 5 or whatever it is, 8 till 3 schools. When you get home, you play with your toys. You might play with your Xbox. You might play with your mates outside. You have time allocated to let off steam, to do something that you want to do. Okay, the system's squeezing that as much as it can, obviously, with homework and other bollocks. But in theory, you've got time. But as we get older, that stops. And time allocated towards ourselves to do things that we actually want to do effectively stops. Or it's certainly very rare. It's not something you do every single day. You get up, you do your chores, you go to work, you come home, you cook dinner, put the kids to bed. You might have a bit of time and a glass of wine before you go to bed, but you're probably so tired you just climb in, put some crap on Netflix. Is that really what you want to do, or is that something you're just doing because what else are you going to do? And I remember him talking about how for him, allocating time to just do something he wanted to do every day, even if it's half an hour, 20 minutes, changed his life. And that for me was huge, because it's such a light bulb moment, because we don't do that. How many parents and how many people, adults, say, "Oh, I used to love doing that when I was younger," on a semi-regular basis. But then my question is, well, why don't you do it then? I had this conversation with my wife a few weeks ago. So I obviously played football when I was younger. I played football to a decent level. And then I basically stopped playing when I was about 21, 22, and not really played since. Beth, we've been together since I was 23 years old, and she's never seen me play a competitive game. That's how long ago I haven't played. And up in the village where we are, there's a little AstroTurf, and a few lads meet up on a Thursday night and have a sort of a 7-a-side, 8-a-side, depending on how many people turn up. She was like, "Why don't you go?" And I thought, you know what, I'm going to. It's 9 till 10 on a Thursday night, which makes Friday morning's trending feel pretty brutal when you're getting up at 5. But why don't you go? And I now go religiously every single week without fail and absolutely love it. Because one, it's a bit of exercise, which I enjoy, but it also makes you feel young again. You're doing something that you used to enjoy. You're doing something that you did since you were 8 years old. And it feels like you got a bit of time that day just for you. And most of the lads there are in the same position as me. They're my age, they're even older, probably got very busy lives, kids at home, busy jobs, and it's just some time for us. And lots of people watching ask the question, when was the last time you did something that you wanted to do? When was the last time you did something that you didn't think, oh, I got to kind of squeeze in something between something and that's for something? No. When was the last time you went, I fancy going and doing this, and just did it? And that's not a selfish thing to do. It's your life as well. And I think that's a big factor in why so many people feel miserable, because they're doing everything but give themselves some time, but have any playtime, and even call it playtime. Why not? Sounds a bit weird. Feels a bit weird to say playtime as an adult, but it's true. It's time allocated to doing something that you want to do. So all in all, to sort of conclude this episode, it's very understandable why people suffer with mental health issues. But the difference is, don't let it define you. If it defines you and you allow yourself to be defeated and beaten, then the system's won. We should always be looking for ways to try and do the opposite of what the system is trying to make us feel and do. It's trying to make us feel small, so we need to feel big. It's trying to destroy us, so we need to come back even stronger. It's trying to divide us, so we need to unify. It's trying to destroy us in every angle. And this show, Health Code, obviously mainly looks at the way it's trying to destroy us in terms of our health. And it is, whether it's the food, whether it's the medical system, whether it's our mental health, whether it's breaking that spiritual connection with what's above. It's trying to destroy all of those different factors. And we need to individually look at how we can circumvent that. If it's trying to get me to eat this, well, no, I don't want to do that, because look where that's designed to lead. If they're trying to get you to take these poisonous vaccines and other toxic pharmaceuticals, well, no, maybe I'm going to go down a bit more of a natural route. If it's trying to disconnect you with the sense that there's something greater than us, whatever you want to call that, then explore that. And if it's trying to destroy you psychologically, then we need to become steel and come out of the fire strong, powerful, relentless at demanding more of ourselves from our lives. And that doesn't mean I'm saying everyone has to demand themselves this crazy lifestyle and 6-figure, 7-figure salaries and all of that, because that's not what happiness is about. What happiness is about is feeling fulfilled and like you have some kind of purpose. And that may be sat at home, being with your family, being with your loved ones, playing games with your children, having a loving relationship, and being present with those that you care about. That may be as simple as that. For me, I've been very lucky in life. I've got to travel in lots of different places. I've seen my dad headline Wembley Arena twice. I've got a beautiful, beautiful family. Obviously, life's had some challenges. There's things I would have obviously rather had not happened. You know, we lost Kerry a few years ago. I lost my dog a few weeks before that in 2023, sorry. You know, there's things you would rather not happen, of course, but I know I'm very blessed. However, it's the simple things like spending time with my kids, spending time with my wife, spending time with my brother, time with my mum and dad. That means the most to me and always will. It means so much more than anything else. It means so much more than acclaim, than status, than money, than anything. And I'm sure a lot of people can concur with that, especially as you get older. You realize it's the people you share these moments with that matter more than those moments themselves. Because I always use this analogy: when someone scores a last minute winner in a football game, who are they looking for? They're looking for their teammates to share that moment with. When people graduate, they're looking for their parents to share that moment with. When you get good news, people immediately want to tell somebody because they want to share that moment with somebody. And for me, I look at life like that. Yes, you could go through life on your own, but it's a lot more fun to share it with somebody, the good times and the bad times, the challenges and the victories. So I suppose my one bit of advice or takeaway would be unity is incredibly important, and finding somebody, whatever that looks like, whether that's an intimate relationship, whether that's a friendship, whether that's a family member, a sibling, whatever, that you want to experience the good, the bad, and the ugly of life with. You want to be next to them and have them next to you during the times of challenge, during the times of victory. And you know they're going to be there for you in exactly the same way, both sides. And also trying to find something that gives your life what you consider meaning. And meaning and purpose means something very different to each person. They're very subjective. Try that and see what happens. I might be talking complete rubbish. You might be laughing and saying it's way too simplistic and that I don't know what on earth I'm talking about. And maybe you're right. But I'm just sharing my thoughts on this subject after 33 years, which is not a long life yet. Hopefully it's at least double that. And quite a few experiences. And seeing how much the world has changed with the age of technology and how that's affected social interactions and so on. Seeing how the cost of living has hit most people or lots of people, and all of those things change over the last 20 years in particular. And hopefully you've taken something away from this. Hopefully I've not depressed you. Hopefully this is meant to be inspiring rather than depressing. I know that it's a dark subject and I know that it's tough to listen to sometimes, but the whole point of Iconic is to try and give people a context and a perspective that the world, yeah, it's mental, but we don't have to be, and we don't have to accept it to be mental and just allow it to continue like this forever. We do have an influence upon it. And the more we believe that, and the more people that believe that, the quicker we will change it without a shadow of a doubt. So thank you for tuning in with me on this Tuesday evening. I'll be back with you in the morning for trending at 10 o'clock. I shall see you then. Have a great night.